Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something we all deal with, those incredibly real, sometimes totally overwhelming emotional responses. But we're going to approach them from a totally different angle. We're looking at the practical science of semantics. Basically, we're going to explore how hacking your vocabulary can, quite literally, help you master your emotions. Okay, picture this. It's a highly relatable, extremely visceral scenario. You open a super brisk email from your boss, or maybe someone aggressively cuts you off in traffic. Instantly, a voice in your head just screams, "This guy is a total idiot." And within milliseconds, your heart is pounding, your jaw's locked tight, and let's face it, your entire morning is completely ruined. But let's step back and ask a really core question here. What actually ruined your morning? See, we naturally assume that the event itself is what caused all that anger and anxiety. But is that actually the truth? Well, usually we completely confuse the objective event, which is literally just an email from your boss, with the internal story, your brain shouting that he's a total idiot. And right here is the twist that changes absolutely everything. The actual culprit making you miserable, it isn't the objective event itself. It's the highly specific words you used inside your own head to describe it. We fuse the event together with our internal narrative, and honestly, that is exactly where our misery begins. Now, this trap literally builds in your brain, step by step. Step 1 is just the event itself, but then at step 2, we come in with definitive, absolute language. We say things like, "This is awful," or "She is the absolute worst." Psychologists actually call this confusing our levels of abstraction. We're taking a completely subjective inference and gluing it to a real event. Because of that linguistic fusion, step 3 happens, we completely bypass our rational brain, the cortex. And well, that leads directly to step 4, which triggers a massive, unstoppable subcortical emotional explosion. You know, this brilliant insight actually goes back way further than you might think. Back in the 1930s, a Polish engineer named Alfred Korzybski developed a whole theory around this called General Semantics. He figured out that this exact linguistic fusion is a massive, widely unrecognized root of human emotional misery. So the really crucial takeaway here is that when we get trapped in these rigid, awful loops of negative emotions, it's primarily a vocabulary issue. Our words are literally dictating our biological reality.
Let's just pause for a second. I want you to think about the last time you were absolutely red-in-the-face furious with someone. Got it? Okay. I want you to honestly evaluate that exact moment right now. Were you reacting to the objective, observable facts of what actually happened? Or were you reacting to the incredibly dramatic, highly edited story you were telling yourself about what happened? It's almost always the story, right?
And that perfectly illustrates our core philosophical solution, the big paradigm shift here. Famously coined by Korzybski, the map is not the territory. Just like a paper map of a city isn't the physical streets and the concrete buildings, our words are not the actual events they represent. This concept is so unbelievably powerful that it heavily influenced Albert Ellis. He's the founder of rational emotive behavior therapy, which actually paved the way for modern cognitive behavioral therapy.
So how do we actually fix it? Well, we use something called a semantic delay. To manage these wild emotions, we have to use what Korzybski called extensional language to force a neurological pause. This little delay? It's basically the neurological secret sauce. It buys your brain those precious few milliseconds it desperately needs to step back, realize you're just having a thought, and totally prevent that automatic destructive emotional reaction from taking over.
But before we get into the actual techniques, we really need to talk about a massive danger lurking in your vocabulary right now. It's the simple two-letter word, is. I'm serious, it's one of the most dangerous words in the English language. Korzybski warned us all about the is of identity. When you tell yourself, "he is an idiot," or "I am angry," you're implying that there is absolutely no other conceivable way of viewing the situation. You trap yourself in this super rigid emotional response because the word is leaves exactly zero room for interpretation or nuance.
All right, let's look at the extensional language toolkit for semantic delay techniques.
Technique number 1 is all about quotation marks and subjectivity. So a typical everyday reaction might be, "Tom is an idiot who disrespects me." But this technique forces you to mentally place your judgments into quotation marks. You say to yourself, "Okay, I heard Tom disagree with what I said. I then added the inference, he doesn't respect me, and the evaluation, he is a total idiot." You can even just use phrases like, "it seemed to me." By forcing yourself to spell it out like this, separating your inferences from the cold, hard facts, you force that absolutely vital neurological delay.
Next up, we have technique 2, the magic of etc. We all love playing mind reader, confidently declaring, "Oh, I know exactly why they did this," right? Well, instead, apply the technique. Say, "This is what I observed happening," etc. Tacking on that etc. acts as a symbol of what Korzybski called non-allness. It basically reminds your brain that your thinking is highly selective, that you aren't omniscient, and that you are leaving out a massive amount of information. You don't know what kind of day that other person is having. There's always, always more to the story.
Moving right along to technique 3, physiological distancing. When we get triggered, we instantly fuse our physical sensations with an emotional label, shouting, "I am furious." Instead, try strictly describing your raw physical state. "My heart is beating faster. I feel tension in my shoulders, and I am labeling it anger." Think about how powerful and honestly kind of hilarious this is. It's incredibly difficult to maintain a fiery, dramatic rage when you force yourself to sound like a deadpan clinical scientist diagnosing your own sweat glands.
And finally, technique 4, dating. And no, obviously not romantic dating, we're talking about timestamps here. Rather than using a fixed permanent judgment like "Tom is wrong," try saying, "Last Tuesday at 3 p.m., Tom in the year 2026 disagreed." General Semantics suggests using specific dates to mark events because it actively counteracts our natural tendency to fuse completely different moments in time together. People and events are dynamic processes constantly unfolding over time. They aren't fixed objects. Tom might feel totally differently tomorrow, and hey, so might you.
Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. This sounds incredibly laborious and frankly pedantic. But listen, that extra effort is exactly the point. Taking those extra few seconds to carefully describe reality using these semantic rules literally requires pedantic effort. That specific effort physically engages the rational parts of your brain, your cortex, which immediately slams the brakes on your subcortical emotional response. You are literally using logic to actively diffuse your own biological triggers.
And what's amazing is how this brilliantly connects a 1930s linguistic framework straight back to the ancient wisdom of the Stoics. As the philosopher Epictetus famously taught thousands of years ago, it is not things that upset us, but our opinions about them. The Stoics constantly strove to use objective impressions to describe the world. This just proves that separating fact from our highly subjective narrative is a timeless, absolutely necessary pursuit if we want any peace of mind.
So, that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Your words literally create your reality. If you want to change your emotions, you absolutely have to start by changing your semantics. So, which of these 4 techniques will you choose to disarm your very next stressful event? Are you going to use the magic of etc.? Or maybe diagnose yourself like a clinical scientist? Think carefully about the words you let bounce around in your mind today, because you just might find that you are the one writing the script for your own frustration. Keep learning, keep questioning your vocabulary, and I'll see you in the next explainer.